Hello and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan Steele and I will be your nerd today and any other day that you watch one of my silly little shows. Hi everybody. So today is a special event, a special episode because it is the first time that I am going to be talking about my new, old, been working on it a long time in different forms, gaming project, Intergalactic Heroes for Evil Genius Games. This is also going to be the first time that we'll probably get a lot of audience from the people who are interested in IGH. So I'm going to do a real quick week in Bryan in an effort to try and keep this video concise and keep me from rambling like I often do. However, if you are new to Tales from a Professional Nerd, I start every episode with kind of a brief review of the cool stuff that's happened to me in the 4 pillars of my life, and so we call that segment Week in Bryan. We get through that, and then we get into the actual topic of the episode itself. So if you are new here, feel free to fast forward if you don't care about the Week in Bryan. If you do, stick around for a few minutes and learn a little bit about this guy. Alright, so my 4 pillars. The first one is always personal. Personal is things about my family or my health. I still go to the gym, still trying to lose weight. My sciatica has been doing much better, so I'm going to start going back to the weights and not just using the massage table in the sauna. I'll be doing the weights in sauna 3 times a week. So we'll see where we go from there. Hopefully I don't exacerbate the situation, but I feel like I'm doing good. I feel like I've been at least kind of keeping that plateau going. Health-wise, everybody's doing good. I seem to have avoided the con crud from both conventions that I attended a couple weeks ago. And, things seem to be all right. Weather here is terrible. If you're wondering why I feel like I'm cold, is because I am. The Indiana weather has been extremely weird lately, and it's either constantly raining or we are threatening some snow, which is awesome, I suppose. I don't know. Second pillar of my Week in Bryan is painting and hobbying. So my 3D printer has been running pretty much nonstop for a commission print that I'm doing for a friend. I painted up some stuff for Warzone Eternal, and I finally assembled that giant model kit that I mentioned months ago. I finally just got it in my head, grabbed my magnets, grabbed my drill, and made it happen. So at some point I'll start putting paint to model again. But for now, assembly and printing is fine to take the stress of every day off of my shoulders. Third pillar is always work related, is the stuff I'm doing for work, which some of this topic will bleed into the topic, or some of this pillar will bleed into the topic of the day, because Evil Genius, we have officially really started telling people about stuff that's going to happen inside Intergalactic Heroes, plus some other cool stuff. But as far as my day-to-day goes, so I finished one Shadowrun novel last week and started working on the outline for the next one, and reached out to some of the people who know a few of the characters that I'm using in the next novel, the people who know those a little better, like some of the ins and outs of them, because it's their characters. So I'm getting some good information about those characters so I can work it into the story that I'm telling in the next book. I think that's about it. Stuff for Warzone. Work on the aforementioned tournament kit has officially begun. Just to kind of figure out the language and some of the trying to keeping it as close to what you'll be seeing in the rulebook as possible, but without losing the special feel of this. This is something that you're picking up that's special and unique for the tournament scene. And then for Evil Genius, it's been steady. I've been working on. I wrapped up the manuscript for a organized play adventure last week. We've been doing all kinds of art submissions and or art orders and map orders, and just really putting everything together. We've had several manuscripts on hold, basically waiting to get the love from within the supply chain, and that stuff's starting to come together and start to shape up. And so I'm getting really excited about a few of the projects to see how they gel and how they come together at the end. We just got the four product covers for the Legendary Bundle, the 2 Pacific Rim products and the 2 Kong Skull Island products. We got those 4 covers finished and approved by the studio. So I'm super psyched for everybody to get those projects in their hands, because we made some really cool stuff in that product too. Which then leads us to Intergalactic Heroes. So we announced it and showed a little bit of it off in theory at the Gamma trade show a while back, a few weeks ago. I've shown a few of my local playtesters, and we've gone through some internal stuff, obviously. But it's now starting to actually see outside playtesters, at least certain aspects of it. And we have the official Intergalactic Heroes role-playing game Facebook page, which I will put the link to in the description of the video in case you are interested in following that a little more directly. I am obviously I'm doing an entire video on Intergalactic Heroes, or at least 10 things that I want to talk about when it comes to the video, or when it comes to the game. It's still in the creative process. It's still being formed. There's obviously testing that needs to be done, and the manuscript's not even fully written. I mean, like that. I don't want to try and say that like we're suddenly just there's a game. It's definitely in progress, but it's already got a good shape in mind. Myself and the production manager over at Evil Genius, Paul Tim, who, by the way, was super integral to Legend of the Five Rings back in the day. Paul is amazing. I got to know him at Gamma. We were hotel roomies, and I got to really know him and talk to him a great deal. I mean, worked with him for now over a year. But I really got to know him and got to talk a lot about our pasts and our professional pasts, and it was really cool. And I cannot stress this enough. Paul is a resource that I really hope that our company taps into far more. Maybe it's the old school gamer in me who loved Legends of the Five Rings, but some of the stuff that Paul was integral to back in the day could really help a lot of our projects now. So I'm hoping that that Paul will be able to flex some of those creative muscles a little bit. And it was really cool to sit down and actually basically talk to him about, this is what I'm planning to do with Intergalactic Heroes, and get his opinion, bounce some ideas off of him. He bounced some ideas off of me, and then that conversation carried after the convention into emails and text messages and Zoom calls, and it is really it is nice to not have to do things in a vacuum, which is always problematic, if you completely do things by yourself. But there is also a wonderful sense of autonomy that comes from being in charge of this product and knowing the vision that I've got to put to the vision that I've got to take the resources that I've been given to create this game. And maybe call it hubris if you'd like, but I've been doing this a long time, and I really trust that this is going to be a banger of a game, and being able to build off of Sig and Chris's amazing Everyday Heroes rule set and kind of evolve it from there into Intergalactic Heroes. I'm very, 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 very happy with what we have planned. And hopefully, I never want to say, hopefully it doesn't change. Hopefully some of the things that I really want out of this game do not get altered by happenstance. A lot of things can happen as a product is being shaped and molded. A lot of decisions can come about based off of management calls or monetary concerns or timing or, hey, this license is coming up and that's way too close. We don't want to put it in the core book because we want to save it for the license. There's a lot of things that can happen when a role-playing game is being formed. So, I really hope that people, the fans, the playtesters, ultimately the fans, I hope they trust my judgment and my creative calls, and we make one hell of a game that helps put the Everyday Heroes franchise collectively a little firmer on the map, in my opinion. Without further ado, so we'll say at 11 minutes in, I'm going to write that down when I do the video description. If people are not interested in the Week in Bryan, they can just skip to the 11-minute mark. I wanted to take today and give an episode of my show to the project known as Intergalactic Heroes, and give you 10 things that you might not know, and that's not be like it's all gossip or anything like that. I want to impart on you just how much thought and what we're planning on doing with this awesome setup. So I've got 10 bullet points that I want to talk about. And I'll probably spend a few minutes on each of them, maybe some longer than others. But at the end of the day, a few of them are about logistics and the history of what we're doing, and then a lot of them are actually what I want to put into the game, and maybe get your guys' opinions in the comment section. And give you a chance to win the comment raffle, which, by the way, as I look at the calendar and my note, I have to announce the March the March comment raffle winner. So I guess that's going to end up being longer than 11 minutes. So every month I pick a random, I use a randominator that takes all of the names that have started threads on the comments in the comment section of the episodes of the previous month. It picks one of those names, and then I put together a random gamer related prize pack out of my studio here that ranges from books to adventures to dice to cards to minis to really whatever I feel is a fun little prize pack for someone to win for commenting and being part of the Tales from a Professional Nerd family. This March's winner is at Walter Cook 9517 from episode 229. Your comment name popped up in the randominator, and when this airs, I will comment on your comment and get you to email me your physical address so I can send you your prize pack. Now it's actually at 14 minutes is when this starts. So yeah, let's talk about my 10 bullet points that I wanted to talk about. The first and foremost is the history behind Intergalactic Heroes. Some people have asked, is this the Rebel Moon role-playing game that we tried to create with Netflix, and then there was the whole lawsuit thing? Yes and no. Part of our situation with the Rebel Moon role-playing game is that we could not release that game. We went our separate ways. Everyone had the smiles and handshakes. Everything's great. but we were allowed to keep the mechanics and things that we had built. Obviously, it is not set in the Rebel Moon universe because that's their universe. It's not the game that we're making. And there was a lot of really, really cool game material that was, I mean, hundreds upon hundreds of pages of really, really cool gaming material that was made for that concept. That for the last couple months and for the next couple months, I'm going to be going in and basically I'm taking all of the awesome game crunch stuff and turning it into our own thing, which this is a doubly good. This is a win-win. Yes, me personally, I'm sad that we didn't get to see how that would have come together, but given all things in the situation, this is really, really cool because now I'm able to take all that really, really neat stuff. I say really, really a lot. We get to take all the stuff that we put together for that concept and now fit it to our own concept. We are no longer constrained by the needs of a different license. We get to create our own ideas, which means that a lot of the stuff that we had painstakingly put together is still going to see the light of day. It is still going to be out there. It's still going to be played. The reason why we make these games is for them to be played, not to stroke our egos and not to necessarily wow, it's super cool to create this setting. Yeah, it's cool to create this setting, but at the end of the day, we want you guys to have fun. We want you guys to have a game that is fun, entertaining, and that you can take these rules and go and play and create your own wonderful settings and things. So being able to free those rules, free those concepts from the incarceration of a different setting allows us to then expand and leave it a little more open, maybe have options that weren't there before. So Intergalactic Heroes is ultimately the game that we want to create that now has this extremely open future. This future that can take it to anywhere we want to go. Within the confines of making rules, obviously. I mean, if you can't design a rule, if you can't, if we can't create a something because we can't figure out how to gamify it, then yeah, that it's not going to go there. But you understand what I mean. At least I hope you do. I know this is not really a conversation, but I see you nodding out there because my webcam is magic. I don't know. But yeah, so thing number one basically is this is not just the Rebel Moon. It's not just that. It is so much more, because now we are able to do so much more with it without the confines of someone else's ideas and systems and checking in with a licensor, and we get to make this. Which brings us to my second point is, will the book be completely... This has actually come up in the Discord, it's come up in playtesters, it's come up in the Facebook. Will this be completely setting neutral like the Everyday Heroes main book, where the Everyday Heroes main book is got no setting in it at all? It's just, here's a toolkit for you to be able to create your own games. Things like Everyday Arcana, things like Intergalactic Heroes, they require a little bit more structure if we want to be able to include some of the things that we include. Because unlike just, the modern world where you can be like, hey, make a story that would fit in an action movie and it works, trying to do that with sci-fi specifically, because it involves things like alien races or technology levels, or it is you have to come up with at least some kind of bubble to play in, and so combine that with the fact that all of the industry greats in role-playing games. And I don't use hyperbolic language that often to say, all of this. The best games that are out there, profitability-wise, selling-wise, popularity-wise, all have at least a little bit of setting baked into them. D&D has become, already baked in as the Forgotten Realms. All of those racial descriptions that you see in the player's handbook, those are all, yes, they're generally seen as generic, D&D races, but the actual descriptions of them, they hail from the Forgotten Realms style of D&D. They, the world setting, the gods that you see in there. Yeah, there's some alternate pantheons, but like it has become over the decades. Forgotten Realms has become the kind of main D&D, the core D&D. It doesn't mean that people can't use D&D to play all these other games. It doesn't mean that they can't add Ravenloft to the D&D set. It doesn't mean that they can't play in Dragonlance. It doesn't mean that, all of these things, they're all possible, requiring a little bit of tweaking. But that original book is very firmly set in the Forgotten Realms. Even if it doesn't say all of your D&D games are Forgotten Realms, it's laying the groundwork for mainstay D&D being from Faerun. And a lot of that has to do with the fact of it is, as a setting, it's a very neutral in the way that you can find all of those races. You can find places everywhere that have this background or that background without having to try and shoehorn it into another setting, without having to try and homebrew away something. And we want to do kind of a similar thing. I'm getting off my topic. Is that almost Starfinder has their primary rules where their world is set, their arc as well. But people have also started to make offshoot games, offshoot worlds of Starfinder. We have the same concept. Is the Intergalactic Heroes rule set will be a very, very good place to be able to homebrew your own setting, your own stuff, eventually come up with some of your own alien species and things like that, alien origins. But we have to have a starting point. We have to have a place to build from that isn't completely removed of stuff, because then we don't have art direction. Then we don't have a place for us to start building adventures from. We don't, there's a reason why the industry does certain things the way they do. And one of the reasons why they bake these settings into the core books is because it immediately gives that player picks up a book and immediately can go home and start playing, because there's enough of a setting, like a brush of the setting there, that a GM can go, okay, I get it, and just start to try and play. Whereas if we had a section that was like, okay, here are the ways to create your own alien origin, because we don't want to, fit the alien origins into a box that could be setting related, then now there's an extra step for people to start playing. Is they've got to sit down and they've got to figure out how to make those aliens that they want to put into their game. Now, that is not to say that people can't do that. They won't be able to take these rules and make their own game, or fit them to a different rule setting, or a different genre setting. And it also gives us the okay for later on, when we have the option to do some of the licenses that we're looking at, is all of our previous cinematic adventures and cinematic sourcebook style stuff have all been based off of Everyday Heroes, and they add something to that. This allows us to do the same thing, but with a sci-fi background. So if we get some license that has its own alien species, it has its own rules for space travel. Maybe it has some kind of weird technology that isn't in our book. We could use all that stuff and apply it to the IGH core set. That's the idea. But It doesn't mean that there is no setting. It doesn't mean that there is that it's devoid of setting coming out of the box. And some of the terminology, some of the things that you'll see in the things that we release to show the world, there's going to be some terms, there's going to be some names, there's definitely some alien origins that people are going to go, oh, but that doesn't fit in my. I'll use it because that's the top of my head. That doesn't fit in my Orville role-playing game that I want to create using Intergalactic Heroes. Well, if that's the case, then you don't use that origin and build your own origin off of that. Or find one that fits really close and then wash the paint off of it and, put the thing back on. We want that to be available for people to do. But still have that firm concept in mind for us to be able to create things and build up our own intellectual property using IGH as well, because that's where the most successful games go. Rather than just core book, source book, is start to build on your own world, your own license, and that's how these mega games like Shadowrun, these super worlds like like Greyhawk and stuff, that's how those were created, is they started to build their IP until eventually it took off. So all right, point number 3, is it compatible with Everyday Heroes? Yes. So we took the Everyday Heroes system and basically expanded upon it. There is at least one new skill that the Intergalactic Heroes book and characters and stuff will have access to right out of the gate, which that is not to say that the skill does not exist for characters from Everyday Heroes. It just means that there's no way for them to, there's no reason for it to be on their character sheet, because there's no classes or backgrounds or anything that gives that to them. Now, I think that it would be super rad for someone to, if they came to my table, I'm playing, let's say I'm running an Intergalactic Heroes game, and someone comes to my table and goes, hey, I really, really wanted to play a martial artist from Earth, so I just made an Everyday Heroes character. Can I still play in your game? Effectively, yes. There's no change in the core mechanics. Just because I might have some skills or I might have some applications that require this character to make some roles that might be harder for them, that makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, Flash Gordon, I'm going back in the Wayback Machine. Flash Gordon is a college quarterback who is effectively stolen from Earth and brought into space. That's like the perfect example. It's an Intergalactic Heroes campaign with one Everyday Heroes character who got chucked in, and initially he does not know how to fly a spaceship, and he absolutely does not know how to use xenotech, but over time he might, which that would be, as you gain levels, you take the feats that allow you to do the things that IGH has that EDH did not. So the answer to that question is absolutely. In fact, we are hoping that there might be down the road, Everyday Arcana is going to have the same kind of idea, that everything grows off of this really, really cool, firm Everyday Heroes base that we have proven time and time again is a great rule set. So we can kind of sprout off of that main rule set, not requiring you to have it to play these games, but that they can play well together, that they can play nice together just fine, and not even with like well, don't do this, but do this. Not even really like that. Just different applications of rules that use those same mainstay concepts, and that's where that is. And I think that it's going to be, I look forward to hopefully coming up with some convention games down the road when all 3 of our game lines are out, that we basically bring characters from different game lines and put them together and see how it goes. That's what I want. That's what I want to see. All right, let's get into, so this is bullet point 4. Let's get into some of the mechanic-y things that I want to do with Intergalactic Heroes. First and foremost, we tested out some alien origins or alternate origins in both Universal Soldier and Total Recall with mutants and also with Highlander with Immortals. Basically, whereas every character in Everyday Heroes normally is just a human, and so all of their origins technically are just human. As we added some of these other things, it came to us that this is a way for us to alter, create characters that might have unique abilities or unique biological properties or cyberware or whatnot. By basically adding these things, maybe adding a few drawback traits to them as well, to kind of help balance things out. And then, whereas humans have always been a little more versatile, like the cultural spectrum that is humanity, especially when you take into consideration a space setting where humans could possibly be everywhere, growing up on the opposite ends of the galaxy. It gives us a way to differentiate characters at a very, very baseline level. Now, I do want to try and I want to try and explain that the alien origins, not just aliens. There is also a synthetic origin, so you can play effectively a robot. But it is, they're not like inherently better. SIG has done an amazing job of giving all of us designers and developers at EGG a nice baseline to work from, and so we can look at something that maybe has a natural attack that's better than regular unarmed combat. That might be okay. That makes up for a little bit in one of their ability scores is slightly like the standard array that you can use. Maybe their standard array is just slightly smaller, or maybe they have light sensitivity, or maybe something along those lines. Is we want to try and create these origins to be as fair and equitable as possible, and try to avoid cultural sway as part of an origin. One of the best things about having backgrounds and professions in Intergalactic Heroes and Everyday Heroes and all that is the things that people often dislike about having races that are defined, that are wholly defined. The monoculturistic, all Klingons are this way. All, the Star Wars thing of, well, yeah, every Twi'lek is like this. To try and avoid that is that the origin might talk about their primary culture. It might talk about the main thing that their homeworld deals with, or something along those lines. But when it comes to building the character, you don't have to follow that, and none of those necessarily those origins traits are going to reflect on. They're almost always going to be biological in nature. There might be something that kind of keys into a bit of the formative, but they're mostly going to be about the actual physical, I am building the body. And then backgrounds and professions allow us to shape that in a way that makes it more unique to where that person grew up, or the city that they're from, or the spaceship that they were born on, or something along those lines. Backgrounds and professions will allow us to create the cultural balance instead of saying all Klingons are this. I mean, not that we are doing Klingons, but you know what I mean. So yes, origins non-human origins, and in fact, actually, there's a slot for human origins that we, in Intergalactic Heroes, it's got a slight bonus to it because there are so many human or near human places in the brain out there in the vastness of space that we couldn't just say all humans do this, and we also didn't want to say that all humans are strictly vanilla. So they do get a bonus based off of the fact that they are so diverse. They get a diversity bonus, so to speak. Next up, I mentioned that we are dealing with that there is at least one other skill being brought out in Intergalactic Heroes, and that skill is called technology. Now, you might be saying, Bryan, I play Everyday Heroes, and we've got a computers and mechanics skill. Why do we need technology? Well, in sci-fi games, sometimes, in sci-fi settings, sometimes there are technologies that defy normal logic. You know, it is still science fiction. And technology skill is going to cover a lot of that weird stuff. It's also going to cover things like xenotech. So basically technology that is not from your end of the galaxy. Someone hands you one of my favorite examples of what a good xenotech skill would be, or a requirement for the xenotech skill would be the plumbus from Rick and Morty. It's this weird, goofy, horrible, disgusting-looking thing, and Rick tells everybody, "Oh no, everybody's got a plumbus. Everyone has one." And no matter how many times someone can say that, unless you know what you're dealing with, or someone has shown you how to use it, or has explained to you what it does, there's no way to know what that is. And that's what this technology skill, no amount of knowing the mechanics of this weird pulsating thing, and no amount of understanding computers will tell you how this works. Technology, the Kryptonian crystal computers of the Fortress of Solitude. Yes, you could bang on crystals all day and put crystals in stuff and luck out with a disadvantaged skill roll, perhaps. But at the end of the day, you don't know how those things function. They just function. And the technology skill is a way for us to show that there are people that understand better how those higher sciences really, beyond computers, beyond the wheels and gears and pneumatics of an engine, where that stuff beyond goes. And that's where our technology skill falls into play. Feats, multi-class feats, and all the like will definitely be here. The Intergalactic Heroes will follow the same thread style that Everyday Heroes does, with certain things you can spend your feats on that are just benefits to the character, being proficient in certain things, that sort of stuff. But then there will also be minor feats, major feats, and then multi-class feats. So people, just like in Everyday Heroes, you can kind of branch out and get some of the cool stuff that the other classes have. Because again, we are also doing the same 10-level structure because we want this to be as compatible as possible. One of the other feats that one of the style of feats that we are introducing, which actually will bleed into the next. Well, let's talk a little bit more about these feats before I get into the next bullet point. The feats and things, you're going to see probably a lot of them that are the same from Everyday Heroes, because at the end of the day, this is not an expansion. This is not, you do not need this book to play Intergalactic Heroes. You need the core book from Intergalactic Heroes, which does mean that there will be some feats that get carried over from Everyday Heroes, because there's some of those mainstays. There's some of the ones that people are just used to taking. I don't like to have to do repeats of stuff, but in this case, it's just a backbone. It has to happen. If these two games are going to be compatible, 3 games if you count Everyday Arcana, then they have to have that same core set of concepts that are there. And when it comes to feats, that means a lot of that stuff is going to be the same. Some of the descriptions might be a little more spicy and a little more sci-fi, but when it comes to the mechanics of them, they're going to function the same way because they're already time tested. We know that they work. We know that they're fine. We know that they're fair. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel in that instance. The next bullet point that I wanted to put down is that there is an additional type of feat. We previewed it actually in one of the PDF snackable game assets that we sell on our website. I believe it's an Outlaw Bikers 3, the Evergreen Knights. I think we brought on the concept of membership feats. Membership feats are basically feats that you can choose when you narratively when you are narratively part of an organization or have been part of an organization, meaning that whereas taking the lucky feat gives you rerolls. Okay, taking the proficiency feats give you proficiency in these skills. These are more ways to help shape a character's narrative by being a part of a guild or something. You look at something like Dune, not necessarily all of the versions of Dune, but being a member of the Spacers Guild, being a member of the Fremen. There's a lot of factions in a lot of factions take place in sci-fi. Less so in a modern game, unless you could be a part of a workers' union or something like that. But if you look at another fan favorite, The Expanse, Belters versus the aristocrats versus Spacers, there's a lot of that stuff that can be shaped by your background and your profession and your class, but there's also something to be said for the actual strength of being part of that community in game. And this is something that sprang from a late night talk with Paul and I about what we really wanted to do with IGH. And one of the things that we really, really wanted to do is create a nice tight bond between player and character. Where one of a game that we both played a lot back in the day was some of the original White Wolf games like Vampire the Masquerade. And I can remember sitting around a coffee table, sitting around a diner table drinking coffee with a bunch of my vampire friends, the people who I play vampires with, and talking about the how this clan deals with this clan, getting your character really into the inner clan politics. And that's something that I think that a good role-playing game can really benefit from, is player identity in the characters, that also gives you that I'm part of a team, not just the team of the player characters, but I'm also part of this thing that I'm doing. You play Babylon 5, be a part of the Rangers. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're just the Ranger class, but you also can back up that style, that mentality, that overall stuff. And so we want to introduce basically factions that players can be a part of if their narrative brings them to that. And once they become part of those factions, things like the bank, these are not the final names, obviously, but things like the Bankers Guild or the Traders Union, or maybe the stellar cartographers, the people who explore the stellar frontier. That's the kind of stuff that we want people to start when they start building their characters and looking at what they want to do to make their character more unique and more theirs and get into the personality. Is faction play is always really cool about that. It also gives us a really interesting backdrop to build adventures and build convention games, or later on build organized play, seasons based off of maybe this faction is on the rise, or how great would it be to do an organized play Intergalactic Heroes season where the characters, depending on what their choices in the game, the strengths of the different factions wax and wane in the overall setting. That's the kind of stuff that I think is really cool about a game that players become invested in their characters, and it's not just about the numbers on the page. It's not just about what power can this give me. It is more about the philosophies involved, and talking about the maybe taking a job for this faction, and one of the people in the game, one of the characters, is a member of that faction, so they're not only the point of contact, but they're also, if things go badly, they're the one that is going to suffer the most backlash from the situation. That's what we're looking at here. So factions are going to be a thing, and each one is going to have one or two membership feats that you can buy. You don't necessarily get them for free or anything like that. It's not a power gaming thing. It's just more options, and it's more options that are tied into the narrative of the character that you're building. Technology levels. So we want Intergalactic Heroes to be a nice benchmark for people to be able to build from, a nice toolkit. So there's going to be, in the main book, there's going to be several examples of varying technologies whether it's slug pistols to blaster pistols to full-on beam weapon lasers like you see in Dune. We want to be able to give people the various options. We plan on experimenting a little bit with what is considered a military proficiency as far as equipment goes, or it's hard to judge certain cultures. There might be, this particular weapon might just seem normal to them, but as to someone else, it might be maybe a little more advanced. So we're not 100% sure how that's going to cook out. It's probably going to stay with a proficiency-based system, and then maybe have some, descriptions, of the description of the item itself. It might be, this is an advanced weapon, but, in the description of the weapon, it'll say, in cultures where faster than light travel is not readily available, this is a military grade weapon, or this is a xenotech weapon, which actually I'll build into this bullet point. In one of the agency files, PDFs that we did, we showed off some alien technology, and all of those had the xenotech trait. Which meaning that they would require the xenotech proficiency to use, or something that allows you to use them. That was kind of a preview of what some of these things may specifically require. You can't just pick up, it's someone, so you're on some alien planet and someone hands you this crystal geode ball thing that has a spiky bit and goes, here, blast them. You're going to look at this and go, I don't know. And that's what the technology skill will help you figure out. And if you have the xenotech proficiency, you will have a understanding of what these things are, and hopefully then know where to put your fingers and zap with the spiky thing. That's if that makes any sense. That is still definitely a formative situation when it comes to the rules, because when you're dealing with copious amounts, technically, understandably countless levels of alien technology out there, having one proficiency that just covers it all seems a little overpowered, one might say. So there will probably be a second step. There will probably be the xenotech proficiency maybe gives you advantage on your technology roll to understand a piece of equipment. Something along those lines. Rather than just being a blanket and you can use it. Yeah, so that was, we were talking about the weapon efficiencies. Let's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so how far am I down? I'm at number 8. The starships. Starships. Everybody wants to talk about starships, and I don't blame them. Starship combat and starships as being part of a sci-fi game are, I mean, it's bread and butter. You have to put them together, and I have seen some indie games just sort of hand wave it and go, yeah, as soon as you step on the ship, you get from point A to point B and it's done. Da-da-da-da. Or if there's a combat on the ship, it is almost all narrative unless there's a boarding action involved, or because it is always a very hard thing to do, design wise, because outside of dogfighting, outside of auxiliary craft, which basically have like one pilot and maybe one gunner, flying around, that's the same as just basically being in airplanes just in space. It's so that style of actions and combat and stuff will probably stay very similarly how you would do airplane dogfights in Everyday Heroes, with probably some additional oomph added to them. But when it comes to larger things like capital ships or freighters or massive dreadnoughts and things like that, it needs to be 6 seconds. Like regular combat rounds just don't cut it. It doesn't make any sense. It takes a lot longer than 6 seconds to calculate the trajectory of the 50,000 kilometer laser or whatever. There's so much more to it. So rather than doing actual combat in Intergalactic Heroes, rather than doing actual, I rolled a hit, you rolled a hit, and it's all on the pilot, it's all on the gunner, and half of the party goes, all right, I guess I'm strapping in and hoping for the best. We are testing a system that is more of a, as a crew on this, all of you player characters, all of the heroes on a vessel, they come to a decision of what they want to do, and depending on what it is, whether it's an offensive action, defensive maneuvers, docking the ship, and it's not just combat. It's basically any time that you want to do something that requires that with some degree of failure or some risk involved, unless it is just the GM goes, all right, you make it, you fly through the asteroid field, wherever. But things like evasive maneuvers and your regular attacking during combat, an offensive combat round, is not going to just be the pilot making a piloting check, the gunner making a gunner check, and everybody else making I hope we don't die in the void of space check. Everybody is going to have something to do. Each one of these actions is going to have, here's a few things. Obviously, for most of them, there's almost always going to be a pilot involved. And depending on the vessel, depending on the maneuver being done, might require, must require one person, could have maybe up to 2 extras, co-pilot and maybe someone helping with navigation. It's going to be a setup of different actions that you have to take, and you're looking, it's basically a varied version of a group check where different people are doing different things, and you're trying to get the overall success of that action. And it also helps because it's not going to be, for the purposes of a GM anyway, it's not going to be a big versus check. I'm not going to be rolling a ton of dice if I'm the GM, I'm not going to run a ton of, you're being shot by 15 lasers. It's more along the lines of, what are you doing in this part of in this moment of time in the starship combat? What are you doing? Did we just take a bunch of damage? Defensive maneuvers. Then all of those, what I do is I set the difficulty based off of your enemies. I'm not rolling a bunch of dice. I'm not rolling, 10 attacks against you. Please dodge 10 times. Nothing like that. It's awkward. It's weird. It puts all the weight in one player. It doesn't give people the feeling of being a crew. It doesn't give a feeling of the dynamic starship stuff that happens in sci-fi games. What it does is that it makes one person's dice to make everybody suffer or benefit, and that's not cool. It's also kind of boring, especially in mass combats where, as the GM, I go, all right, well, I've got 15 fighters strafing you. Okay, take this one. Oh, that one misses. Yeah, nobody wants that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in the hands of the players to choose what they're doing. And then the game master sets the difficulty and basically chooses from the outcomes chooses from this is what I can do, and that sets your difficulties. Make your dice rolls, tell us how you do. And that will be, we're going on the attack. Okay, cool. If you go on the attack and you get this many successes, this is the difficulty. This is what this is your win condition, so to speak, and then it will inflict damage upon the game masters, the threat involved, until it's overcome and so forth. Whereas the opposite, if you fail, you're going to take some damage to your ship. You're going to possibly have the cool exploding panels where people get bounced around the cabin and take some bludgeoning damage from being smashed in the bulkhead. That's what we want to see. We want to make starship combat more of a full team experience, just like you see on TV, just like you see in the movies. Very rarely, there might be someone strapped down, but you might see them be running from one section to the other, or patching up someone's bandages, or all the boxes are falling in the cargo hold, I'm going to hold these up. These are all going to be facets of doing those actions, so everybody can be involved in some capacity, because there's nothing worse in my mind of having something where some of the players just sit there and still splitting the party. Sure, some players are just sitting there because you're focusing on the spotlight on someone, but if you're actually involved but you have no say whatsoever, I hate it, and I won't allow it in a game that I'm creating. So there you go, you got that. Starships themselves, I do eventually, there will be a bunch of sample starships in the core book and in the Game Master's Guide. We want to make sure that we have enough that people can start with and have ships kind of out of the gate. But my goal is, as this line expands, is to hopefully do a starship book. Where it's not only just kind of like a monster manual for spaceships, but has a section on how to build your own. Because I always think those are really, really cool concepts. It's one of my favorite parts about playing. Was it the one that just was out? I don't remember the name of the game. It's a video game, but you could sit there and play. Play in the shipbuilder for hours. So that's what I want to eventually come up with a starship book that will help people build their own ships and have their own weapons, their own systems and stuff. But if you want to know kind of the general feel of how starships are put together, there's a lot of similarities to what we did with how to build a Jaeger in Pacific Rim, with the different systems and how much bulk you can carry. Obviously, there's not going to be neural load or anything like that, but we want to be able to build systems and build frameworks of ship based on your size. And so, whereas auxiliary craft will probably be more or less just basic vehicles, anything bigger than an aux craft will have different system locations, things that having better shields, having artificial gravity, having these are the things that you're going to be able to build into your ships. And if combat goes poorly for you, or a maneuver goes poorly for you, you're going to be able to take damage to those systems, and there will be penalties involved. That's in a nutshell. We want ships to be more than just hit points and armor and guns. And lastly, the last thing I want to say, the number 10 of this video for Intergalactic Heroes is We want this to be able to be used to do just about any sci-fi genre. Like if you want to do super serious and super, techno crunchy, as a homebrew, you totally can. It is hard to design for that, so we're going to try and put in as much, give you as many tools as we can to build that, to be able to focus on that, and then later on in like the Game Master's Guide and potentially some of these other source books that I've talked about, or started to dream about, is all kinds of optional. Hey, if you want to add this to your game, here you go. Hey, if you think your game needs this, here you go. And it's going to be a setting light toolkit where some of the terminologies and things that are some of the terminologies and things that you might use in your game that would be different. For instance, we will definitely have there's a sci-fi trope of having a force in the universe, a destiny, a fate power, the ability to manipulate one's reality. That exists in sci-fi games, sci-fi genres almost everywhere, and that kind of mystifying, mysterious energy, there's no good way to define it unless it's within the genre, unless it's within that setting. Like Star Wars has the Force, Star Trek technically kind of I guess has like the Q quotient or continuum or whatever. Babylon 5 had the techno mages, and I guess to a certain degree the psychops. There's always that little touch of mystery, that little touch of something in a lot of these genres, and they're all defined in their own way. We want people to be able to play the game that they want to play, but we do have to have a baseline to start from. So we do have cooked into the main rule set a name and a style of this kind of all-encompassing energy field thing, and that we hope that in our setting you'll use it as it's written, as it's titled or whatever. But in outside games, there's going to be a call-out box that specifically says, like, if you want to do your own world and you want to name this different, feel free. The mechanics can stay the same, but name it however you want. If you don't like the idea of the harmonist class, then change it. In your Star Wars game, you're calling it a Jedi. That's completely up to you. And we not only do we say it's okay, we encourage it for your world to not necessarily have to use our terminology. We're using our terminology because it gives us a baseline to work from, and it gives us a way to describe it that isn't super wishy-washy and insert random name here. It gives us something to build off of and refer to in the ways of gamification. You just take those words and change them for your own setting, your own homebrew or whatnot. And that's we just really want this game to become something that, if you want to play in our setting, awesome. We'll come up with stuff for you to keep doing that. But if you want to make your Expanse game, if you want to make your Orville game, if you don't like the Star Wars role-playing games that are currently out and you want to use IGH to do yours, we're going to hopefully give you all the tools to be able to do that, or at least get as close as we can, and then you can homebrew the rest. We want this to be a toolkit, an awesome backbone of something that will hopefully become larger and bigger and better. Obviously, the creative in me is like, I hope that people take the setting that we are building and go, this is amazing, and run all kinds of cool games with it. I want to see that too. But the actual game itself, the core system, we want you to be able to do what you want with it. And we hope that everything we put together will lend to that fact. So there we go. There are 10 little bullet points, little conversationals about the beginnings and the workings of Intergalactic Heroes. More to that in the future as things gel and come together. Go to the Facebook page if you want to follow. I'm going to start dropping some preview stuff there, so people will get a chance to see as we're creating, as we get concept art, as this stuff starts to gel. We're going to start dropping stuff into the Facebook page and get people's opinions and kind of keep people excited about the work to come. And the plan currently is by the end of the year having a beta test document that we're going to let people have, let people go home and start playing with the betas. So I look forward to talking to more about it in the future, and to talk to you about it in the various electronic social media channels. So until next time, please be safe, get your shots, wear a mask if you have to, wash your hands, don't lick doorknobs, just generally be safe. And try and leave every room a little happier than when you got there. And until next time, play some games. See you next week.